let's talk a little bit more about the comparison between 7 and 8mm.
Yeah, because you watched 7 for the first time not too long ago.
Yes, I watched it for this episode because I know that they're from the same writer, but two different directors. His writing, you know, to your point about the George scene where he kills the guy with the leather mask, like that, he's like has the potential to write really good things.
Yes.
However, in the hands of the wrong director, I think it just falls apart because I don't really know too much about Joel Schumacher, to be honest. Like I know obviously the two Batman movies are like corny, but like maybe like cult classics in a little bit of way.
Kind of fun.
But I don't think I've ever seen anything else from him. But obviously on the other side of things, you have David Fincher, who is like
the GOAT.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like one of the greatest of all time. Yeah. Well, I will say for Joel Schumacher's pedigree, he did as a director, he directed some House of Cards. He directed.
So him and Kevin Spacey have a good relationship.
Best friends.
I wonder if he directed that like response video that Kevin Spacey did after he got like outed for, you know, sexual misconduct. The thing where he's like in his kitchen cooking a fucking turkey or something, and he's like, but he is the character from House of Cards.
I know what you want.
So weird and unhinged.
So odd. Maybe Joel, you know, directed that.
Maybe.
Who knows?
What if I like to imagine that Kevin Spacey shopped that apology video around to all of his favorite directors to see if anyone wanted to take the gig. So he like sent a pitch deck to Joel Schumacher. Like, here's the idea.
Yeah.
What a weirdo, dude.
Yeah.
He had directed A Time to Kill, which is a great movie. He'd done St. Elmo's Fire, The Lost Boys, Batman Forever, which is a poorly written movie but has great direction and is really fun. He directed the music video for Seal's Kiss from a Rose. I don't fault him for the bad parts of this movie as much as I do the writing. The visuals from this movie were cool. The set design, costume design, cinematography were all really well executed. I think the screenplay just kind of sucks ass. Like it doesn't know what it wants to be. And 7, from the very beginning of that movie, 7 is like, it feels focused. It all builds to a conclusion that feels like the most natural conclusion of the film, but still feels unexpected. And that's the balancing act that I think a great movie does. When a movie can only end one way and you go, that's the only way this movie could end, but I still didn't see it coming. That's the magic trick, right?
Yeah.
This movie, you don't know where it's going to end because none of it really matters and you don't care. And that's the big difference.
I guess the point that I'm really like thinking about in this movie where I'm like, this could have been better directed and like the writing is somewhat there is the reveal scene where he's at the set of where he like wants the adult film to be filmed or whatever.
When we realize that Mondale the lawyer is
when we get the
it.
big reveal, it's like I feel like we could do this in a way that is not just two guys walking and explaining the plot of the movie. Like you could.
That's true.
I don't know necessarily exactly how you execute that, but there's got to be a different way than like that reveal being, you know, just like lackluster, and then the other thing of like half of the villains in the movie accidentally killing one another. Like that also could be done, which again, that could be the writing as well. To your point, it's a balance. It's a balance.
Yeah, and there are scenes that are incredibly well written and poorly directed, and there are scenes that are incredibly well directed and poorly written. And the film is very, very rarely firing on all cylinders, where everything just feels like it's working, except for like the scene with George in the garden, where he says, you know, what did you expect, a monster?
Yeah.
Great direction, great writing, great performances. It's just not in a good movie.
Yeah.
7 in this movie are very similar because they both deal with the same themes of like serial killers, a big mystery and a big conspiracy. What's the biggest difference you spot between the two films?
For me, number one, more compelling characters. I think that Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman are just, I don't know. And the movie's just like oozing style, which to your point, like in the first scene, 8mm is oozing style. And I think it kind of trails off and just very flat by the end of it. But in 7, I think that Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman, we just know more about their characters. We are given more about their characters, and they're very similar in terms of the beginning. We're thrown right into like the crime or whatever. Like at the beginning of 7, like we see the first murder. We're immediately like shown their dynamic right off the bat. In 8mm, yes, we're thrown right into it. We like, because the point where he meets Mrs. Christian and sees the adult murder film, is towards the beginning of the movie. We're brought right into it, but we don't really like know much about his character. Like we get this one dry scene with him and his wife and his daughter, but I don't know. It's such a flat performance at that point that we don't get much out of it.
I feel like what you're describing is something that I see a lot in movies where the characters feel flat, which is that if you only ever see a character in one environment, then you only ever, they will always feel one dimensional. In True Detective season 1, do you remember how Russ Cole, we see him as an old man in an interrogation room. We see him going to Marty's house for dinner with a family, and we see how he interacts with a family. Then we see him on a case, right?
Yeah.
And we see him executing, but then we also see him undercover, and we see him in all these different situations and environments where it just gives you this 3-dimensional, like spherical view of who he is as a man, because you're seeing how the character responds in different environments. 7 does that.
Yeah.
We get to see
but
Brad
8mm, it's just like an afterthought where it's like, oh, well, we probably need a few phone calls between him and his wife to like establish him as a full character.
And you never even really fully see him out of work mode. You don't
Yeah.
see him like loosening up at a bar with the boys. You don't see him being humorous. You don't see him being kind. You don't see any other aspect to his character other than just a private investigator who wants to solve a case. That's all you get.
Yep. Why do you think the mystery work? Because 7, that's one of the things I compare it as well, is like I feel like the mystery is so much better in 7, like because it's very like compelling and like you're really wanting to see where that goes. I did not feel that way in 8mm. Do you agree? And if so,
Hard agree.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll tell you what I think the difference is. I feel like there's just an unspoken contract with an audience in a mystery film. Most of the time, you want there to be a surprising, especially like a whodunit. Like an Agatha Christie story is a great example. The contract in Agatha Christie reader or watcher of one of her adaptation movies has with the storytellers is, hey, I'm coming into this knowing that there's going to be a big reveal that's going to be unexpected, right? 7 doesn't really promise that. And so the mystery, I think, gets to take a back seat to the characters. It's obviously a well plotted out mystery with a surprising twist. But that only works if you care about the characters, because spoiler alert for 7, the big reveal at the end of that movie is that Kevin Spacey, this serial killer guy, has killed Gwyneth Paltrow, who is Brad Pitt's wife in the movie, and stuffed her head into a box and is having Brad Pitt open up that box. He knows, he's so calculated that he knows Brad Pitt is going to be so enraged by this action that Brad Pitt's going to kill him. And the crux of the movie, Brad Pitt has fully become that villain, kind of like how we were talking about how Nick Cage, how it should have played out in 8mm.
It's a similar turn, yeah. But we see that in him leading up to it. We see him, like his emotions getting the better of him when he like kicks down the door at the guy's apartment and stuff like that. We see the seeds of that, whereas in 8mm, it's just like
turns on a dime.
Yeah.
And then by the time Nick Cage is running around slaughtering people, you're like, this feels weird. And in 7 it doesn't, because it's more plotted out, but also we know the character more, so as an audience we're like, don't kill him, don't it's what he wants. You feel like you're watching Brad Pitt hold the gun up to Kevin Spacey's head, and you're like, don't do it. And Morgan Freeman is begging him not to do it. That's the other big differentiating factor.
Really great movie, man. I can't
So
believe I've
good.
only just seen it for the first time, but
it's so good.
Yeah.